We got one of the best factions with one of the coolest content creators you've never heard of before, or maybe you have, and either way, we're gonna get into it and break it down. What's up, guys? MtgJedi here. How you doing today? We got Raid Shadow Legends, my dude Mullet Reaver on the channel for the first time. This guy, if you don't know him, is an absolute legend in the game for his clan boss strategies. His knowledge of the game is insane. Super pumped to have you on the channel for the first time. How you doing, my dude?
I'm doing well, Jedi. Thanks for having me. Big fan. Excited to be on.
That's awesome, man. Is this your first collab on another content creator's channel as well?
Since I've done Twitch and YouTube, yes, but I've been on a couple other channels while I was, or before any of that, when we were just talking about the Infinity Clan Boss team and things like that.
Nice, nice. And I would say that that's probably what you're most well known for, right? Is all of your work on that Infinity team, right?
Yeah, I held the record for a long time. Going back and forth with Victor Tez, we did a bunch of videos on the channel. It's kind of where I got started with the YouTube channel and things like that. Now we've both hit the damage cap, so there's not a whole lot extra we can do until Polarium fixes that if they choose to. But still having fun in other areas, all the hard dungeons and stuff. Fun content to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I've definitely seen you posting some videos on the hard dungeons. Very knowledgeable, very crazy teams, to be honest with you. But today, we're talking about Lizardmen. After the video, make sure you go check out some of Mullet's videos. I'll have all of his links down below in the description and in a pinned comment. So if you've never seen his videos, make sure you go check that out. Give him a subscription over there. Click those like buttons, and let's jump into it today. So we're going through all the different factions just to catch the viewers up. If this is your first video here in this series, I'm trying to have a different content creator on for every single faction. And today we're talking about Lizardmen. And I like to start this off with our favorite champions in the faction. Since you're the guest, would you like to go ahead and start with your favorite champions?
Sure. So my favorite is, kind of going to be an obvious one. It's actually my very first Void Lego on my main account. It was well before I even knew anything I was doing. So I pulled him on a random, it was like a daily login Void Shard, and I pulled it randomly, and it was Krisk. So the big turtle coming out. I didn't even know who he was, so I had to ask my clanmates if he was any good.
I mean, obviously, he's very good, right?
One of the best in the game, absolutely. Just the amount of utility that he brings.
I still think he is the #1 best champion in the game. Like, if you had to come down to it and rank all of the legendaries in the game, I would still put him at #1. There's some honest competition these days with some of this crazy Legos they've released, but I still think I'll put him at #1. Do you think there's anybody who can even be in the conversation as the #1?
I think in that regard, so you were talking about just general utility across the game, so early game carry, things like that. I don't think anybody really does compare with Krisk for that, because he is literally usable in every single area of the game. Between helping keep you alive, to controlling the enemy, to the ally protection, the decreased defense, the decreased attack, all the sort of utility that he brings. He just helps everywhere. There are other champs that kind of do the same thing or bring some other skills to it, like Cardiel is probably one of the in the argument there, because he brings cleanse and ally attack and all that sort of stuff. But I would definitely say Krisk is arguably the best regardless.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you have a Krisk, you're building it. If you have a second one, you're probably building it. And if you have a third one, you're thinking about building it. So an amazing champion there. Probably, some of the inspiration that got you interested in Clan Boss, if I had to guess. As for me, I will say that I think my favorite champion in this faction is going to be Nikmothar. Just because of how ridiculous he's been for me in the Hydra clan boss. and he kind of surprised me at that as well. Like I have a fair bit of champions these days on my account. And so, I was doing brutal, trying to work on nightmare, and somebody on Twitch just suggested I throw Nikmo into one of my already existing teams, and he just sort of just transformed it, catapulted it up like millions of damage more with his kit, being like the AoE A1, the AoE A2 with the decreased speed and the leech, and then that turn meter fill and the extra turn. Like, his kit is just so good, and I've actually tried to pull another copy of him to have a second one for another team. It's just how good he was, how good he is, was surprising to me. And I don't really get that very often in Raid anymore. So that was like such a breath of fresh air when he was added to the game.
Yeah, he's really cool. Basically enabling the rest of your team with all of the turn meter and the speed that he brings. The AoEs that are nice, the leech, everything to allow everybody to heal up, particularly in Hydra and things like that. But the fact that he just gets everybody moving, speed aura, he's got the turn meter boost and the increased speed on the A3. He's just making everybody go faster and take more turns, which is where all the damage is coming from, things like that. It's an excellent champ, yeah. Very cool.
For sure. And like, I think people underestimate the AoE A1s, especially with Hydra hitting all of those heads too. All right, so let's jump in. We were chatting for a minute before we started the collab about this next section, which would be unusable champions. And one of the things we were saying is that we didn't think that there are maybe a lot of unusable champions. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Are there champions in this faction who you would just straight avoid for any content in the game?
So I did think of one particularly, but
okay.
if we're looking at the faction in general, I mean, pretty much everybody in here can be used somewhere for some purpose. I think this one's going to be more out of a spike pick.
Okay.
But we're going to go with Drake. Fake Draco.
Yes. Totally agree.
Immediate 4-star chicken.
Why do you say so, though? Why do you say so? Because I have my own personal gripe with this champion as well.
It's just never seen him used. I mean, I've never found a spot where I'm like, oh, you know what? Drake would be good here.
That's absolutely true. And the thing about him that is such a trap is when you like look at his multipliers, it's like, oh, he has like decent enough multipliers, maybe he would be good. It's like he lures you in and then you max him out and you're just so disappointed. I think I tried him in a secret room maybe just to like get some damage to try to get through. And what a disappointment. Totally agree. Do not recommend leveling this guy up. I would say another trap champion is going to be Jizzo. I know that, some content creators have said he can be used in Hydra. I think that's a trap, despite the fact that he can, put these buffs on here and maybe direct the mischief head. I just don't think that he is worthwhile in any regard. Do not recommend taking him above 40. I just love the way he looks. Such a cool looking champion, but also kind of a trap.
Yeah, I agree with that, particularly because he's also an early login champ.
Yeah.
So he's one of the 7-day logins whenever you start. So you as a new player get him, and they're like, oh sweet, an epic, we can level him up. Like, don't do that. Don't waste your time on Jizzo.
Or especially your books.
Oh. Yeah, or especially your books. Particularly early game, your epic books are actually, unless you're lucky enough to pull a Lego and then focus on, trying to book a Lego out.
Yeah.
If you're just trying to book a bunch of epics, which is where actually my free-to-play is, you're scrounging for epic books. So to waste them on somebody like a Jizzo is definitely, it feels bad for sure.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Other than that, though, like, I feel like there's uses for all of the legendaries. In the past, I would have said Skull Lord or Vergamcar would be unusable, but they've since received buffs. I think that they're both reasonable champions, at least for Faction Wars. Skull Lord has other applications as well, obviously. And even Roxham, still fine, I think. But as far as the epics go, I don't really think any of the rest of them are unusable. They all have their purposes. What about the rares, though? Are there any rares that you would actually advocate for in this faction?
Um, I mean, not necessarily anymore. But like early game, like Scarab, Metal Shaper's really good. 2-turn shield on a 2-turn cooldown. So as long as you can control the turn meter well enough on the Scarab King, and Metal Shaper's your fastest champ, you can make him just keep the shields up all the time. It was
Yeah.
one of the early solutions for that. Since now with like Blood Shield and things like that, it's kind of fallen off as far as a need for him.
Right. I think you're definitely right here. He's usable. He's not my first option by any stretch, but he's definitely usable. I would make an attempt to use him at 50 first, but you
Oh yeah.
might need to 6-star him to get to that speed, so that he's your first champion. What about any of these other rares? I'm not sure. Like, I've seen Skull Sworn at 50. I've seen Cage Bound, like, early game at 50. I think Muckstalker's probably a trap. I don't like that pick at all, even though he has the decreased speed on hit, or wait, what is it?
It's the sleep. So he's kind of
Oh, the sleep, yeah.
cheap option for Sand as far as
Yeah.
sleep goes.
I just haven't seen like a successful team with that. Um I
Yeah,
just
certainly not a high stage.
Yeah, if you can avoid it, just do not use these rares unless you're super early game in Faction Wars. Once in a while, I still see a Saurus as a campaign farmer. He's kind of hard to make work, but he can do the job. But let's transition over into what champions we want to focus on for building our Faction War teams. So, of the epics here, which ones do you think are the most important if we have them?
Easily Venom Mage.
Easily.
So much utility in her kit. She's got damage reduction when she puts up the heal reduction on the enemy. She puts up poison. She activates the poisons. Uh, does a lot of damage. Decreased defense, decreased attack.
Yeah.
She's got a lot in her kit. She can actually solo the secret room, the Lizardmen Epic secret room built properly.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And don't underestimate that accuracy aura either. That can be really
Right.
helpful. I'm actually blessed enough to have this champion on my free-to-play account, and I have been so shocked at the subtle power that this champion provides is just incredible. Like you wouldn't think that this kit amounts to like huge progression in the game, but that's how I've felt adding this champion to my roster. So great pick there for sure. For me, I would say Broadmaw is an auto inclusion for every single person. You have to make one anyway for your Arbiter missions. And he was actually buffed a while back too. So his kit is actually really decent. I think because he's basically a free champion, people still undervalue him. But he has the revive with the block damage, which is clutch. And then he has the increased crit rate, increased speed, and turn meter fill. And even his A1 actually freezes some dudes once in a while. So I think that Broadmaw is an auto inclusion for everybody, unless you just have like a team full of legendary champions, But for most people, Broadmaw is going to be the go-to to keep your team alive.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say absolutely because the revive is probably the biggest part of his kit because particularly in faction wars things like the 21 boss is the one that ignores defense, so he'll
Mm-hmm.
take out a champion in just about one hit. So when you're trying to 3-star that, you really need that revive unless you're um, running a full legendary team or things like that. So he
Yeah,
absolutely comes in clutch, and that A1 freeze that saved me a few times.
for sure, man, for sure. I think that that's an excellent point about the 21 boss also, because I think the majority of people are going to be using Rosin for their faction war team since, you can fuse him now. He's a little bit harder to fuse because, there's so many more rares in the game than there used to be, but still obviously an amazing champion and everybody can get him. But what I'm trying to get back around to based on what you said is he's a defense-based champion, but you still want to build him with high HP. And that's a really good thing to keep in mind when you're trying to clear this faction, is we need high HP. A good goal would be over 50,000 for your faction war champions so that you can 3-star that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say absolutely. And one thing, so we were talking about the rare. So Slither Brute down there, to your point of he's fusible rare. If you find Slither Brute, stash one because he's part of the fusion.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Make sure you hold on to your rares for the rosin fusion, even if you're a long way down the road towards rosin, because sometimes they don't pop out of your shards and you want to be stacking those up. I think one thing to keep in mind here is you want at least one healing type of champion. Usually that's going to be Skathix or Quargan. I prefer Skathix just because I think you can use him in other areas of the game, but Quargan can do the job. Even Jareg can do the job. You want at least one of those champions in there to try to heal your team, because with Broadmaw's Revive, he's only bringing your guys back with 25% HP. So if you can put people in lifesteal or regen, that's all going to be really helpful. Are there any other epics that you really like that we want to talk about here?
As far as, I mean, I'm clan boss guy. So one of my favorite epics to use, or one of my favorite champions to use on a unkillable team would be Jarek himself. Because his A1 is decreased attack, which is one of the most important debuffs to get up on the clan boss if you're not using an unkillable team. And then he has the ally protection on a 4-turn cooldown with the increased defense. So he's a fantastic cornerstone to build a killable team if you're progression. My oldest free to play, I have a 2-year free to play, actually uses Jarek for the clan boss team because I don't have any unkillable champs on that account. So I have a Ultra Nightmare team with Jarek on it. So I do like using him.
Who's in the rest of the team for that account?
Draco, Geo would be my DPS, and then I have Godseeker and Neri for buff extension, and who's the other one?
That's okay if you can't remember it. Probably Apothecary or somebody for increased speed.
I can find out just a second.
Okay, no worries. I'll talk.
Tatora. There we go.
Oh, Tatora. Oh, interesting. Now, I do have a special place in my heart for Jareg. He was one of my first epics on my original account, and I used him in my clan boss team for a very, very long time as well. But yeah, great call out there. Awesome clan boss champion. You're always going to see him. He reminds me of, like, his profile picture here reminds me of Aliens, the movie Aliens. So I always like that. So we already talked about most of the legendaries, but are there any other legendaries that you want to mention here before we move on to the next segment?
I mean, another one of the very first one. So I wasn't sure which one was my actual first Lego on my account. It turns out it was not this champion, thanks to the 4-year anniversary video.
Okay.
But it was my second champion on the account, and that's Draco.
Oh,
obviously,
wow.
Very useful. Tons of poisons, AoE decreased defense, and weaken. That's not a hit, so you don't have to worry about getting 3%ed for negative affinity, or doing weak hits, I'm sorry, for negative affinity. Does a ton of damage, obviously, Clan Boss DPS, one of the best out there. Hits super hard with that A1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we don't talk enough about Draco, but he's still one of the best champions in the game. Again, another champion in this faction. If you have him, you're building him. And I think that's what makes Lizardmen one of the best factions, is because if you're building one of these champions for your faction war team, they're going to help you in other areas of the game. If you're building them for a specific area of the game, they're going to help you in other areas of the game. And that's really powerful. You know, all the factions are not like that. There are definitely some factions that have champions you're only using in one area. They're not helping you anywhere else. And just like Lizardmen are so powerful, you're going to find uses for them in a lot of different areas of the game. So while we are coming to wrap up the video here, let's start talking about our personal faction war teams. if you have yours ready, you can go ahead and start on that, and then I'll pull mine up and put that on screen here.
Sure. And it is awful convenient that it is Faction War Lizardmen Day today.
Yes, it is.
So my team is both of the two that I called out. So Draco and Chris are on the team. Another one of my favorites, who is the only champion I advocate getting from the token trader, is Fushan. Particularly if you are specifically building the Myth Fu team. Don't really advocate it for any other purpose, but if you need that Fushan, I do. Like I said, that's one of the ones that I do recommend grabbing from there.
Totally agree.
And then we got Ramantu and Rosin on the team.
Wow, so our teams are actually really similar. I embarrassingly still do not have Ramantu. I'm very close, but not quite there yet. I have Nikmo in there in that spot, so we basically run the same team, which is pretty cool. It's it's a very fast team. I'm sure yours is even faster than mine. But obviously you don't need this level of champions. You can complete the whole faction with just epics or epics plus rosin, but if you got them, you might as well use them, right?
Absolutely.
Sweet.
So yeah, particularly once you've 3-started the first time, then you're just worried about speed. And so you're just dealing as much damage as you possibly can to get through it.
Yeah, 100% agree. So, while we're wrapping things up here, anything else you want to share about this faction or stuff going on your channel lately? Anything else you wanna chat about here?
I'll do a little shameless plug. So
Yeah.
we are 30 subs away from 1,000 on the YouTube channel. And once we do hit 1,000, that free-to-play account that I was talking about, we'll be giving that away. Once we hit 1,000 subs, so we're almost there. We've been working on it. We're almost there.
Oh man, guys, please head over to Mullet's channel. Get him over that 1,000 hump. I know as a content creator, that is such a big hurdle to overcome and like such a super big goal when you're working on your channel. I know it was for me. I know it is for you as well. So make sure you go check out his channel and give him a sub, like help this man out. Let's get him to 1,000 subs from this collab here, and that way he can move forward and continue to grow. Well, thank you so much for being here, man. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the channel. Any last words as we're wrapping up the video here?
No, thanks for having me. This was fun. I enjoyed it.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you. Thanks again for being here. Go sub to this man, and I will see you guys in the next video.